The hospital finance coordinator pushed the consent forms across her desk, while my parents stood in the doorway like strangers at a funeral. "Someone needs to authorize payment for the spinal surgery," she said, looking between us. My father crossed his arms. "We'll need to think about it." My phone buzzed. Bank alert. Trust withdrawal. $12,000. Administrative expense. My mother's voice cut through the fluorescent hum. "If you'd made better life choices, Talia, you wouldn't need surgery." I stared at the screen, at the account I couldn't access, the money my grandmother left specifically for my medical care. "We'll need that money for lawyers," my father added, already turning away. The coordinator's face softened with pity I didn't want. My left foot had no feeling. The nerve damage was getting worse. And my parents were stealing the only thing that could save me. "My name is Talia Rivera. I'm 27 years old. I teach art part-time at 2 different community centers because adjunct positions don't come with health insurance. And I grew up believing family would show up when it mattered. They didn't. I sat in the pre-op waiting area alone, paperwork unsigned, surgery canceled. The heart monitor next to me beeped steady while mine felt like it was breaking. I'd been teaching a watercolor class 3 days earlier when my left leg went completely numb. Not pins and needles. Nothing. Just dead weight dragging behind me as I tried to walk. The ER doctor had been blunt. Herniated disc pressing on the spinal nerve. Without surgery within 3 months. Permanent paralysis. The word permanent echoed in my head while I watched other families gather around their loved ones. My parents had left without saying goodbye. I pulled up my phone and scrolled through old photos. There I was at 8 years old, holding a blue ribbon at the art fair. My mother's smile looked genuine then. Or maybe I just wanted to believe it was. Growing up, I was always the problem child. Too creative, too emotional, too much like my grandmother, they said. And in their house, being like Nana wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. The memory came back sharp and clear. Nana's funeral, 5 years ago. I was 22, fresh out of college, broke and grieving. Everyone wore black except for Nana, who'd requested to be buried in purple because life should end with color. After the service, while my parents worked the crowd like a networking event, Nana's lawyer found me in the garden. He pressed a sealed envelope into my hands. The paper was cream-colored, expensive, tied with a blue ribbon. "She wanted you to have this now," he said. "Don't let them tell you otherwise." Inside was a letter in Nana's looping handwriting. "My dearest Talia, I know your parents. I raised your father. He measures love in dollars and respect in compliance. I'm leaving you a trust for one reason. Health first, always. No matter what they say, this money is yours when you need it. Don't let them make you small." I'd cried reading it, then folded it carefully and tucked it into my journal. I didn't understand the weight of those words until now. I was 16 when I first heard the phrase, co-trustees. My parents were arguing in the kitchen, voices low but sharp. I'd come downstairs for water and frozen on the landing. "We're her guardians until she turns 30, my father said. "That gives us control. She won't understand how to manage it," my mother added. "This way we can guide her toward better choices." I didn't know what they were talking about. Nana was still alive then, still hosting Sunday dinners and slipping me grocery money when my parents cut my allowance for not applying myself. But I remember the way they said control, like it was something precious they'd won. Years later, when Nana died and the lawyer read the will, I learned about the trust. $150,000 set aside for my health care and education. My parents smiled when he explained they'd serve as co-trustees until my 30th birthday. "We'll take good care of it," my father promised. The lawyer had looked at me like he wanted to say something. He didn't. Present day. 3 months before the hospital refused to authorize my surgery, I was teaching an afternoon art class to middle schoolers, demonstrating how to blend acrylics, when my left foot stopped responding. 1 second I was walking between easels. The next I was on the floor, leg twisted wrong, students screaming. The school called an ambulance. The ER ran tests. The neurologist showed me the MRI, pointing to the bright white mass pressing against my spine. "This needs surgical intervention soon," she said. "How soon?" I asked. 3 months, maximum. After that, the damage becomes permanent. I'd nodded, mind already calculating. I had $800 in my checking account. Rent was $650. The surgery would cost $45,000. But I had the trust. Nana's trust. The money set aside exactly for this. I called my parents from the hospital. I need to access the trust, I said. For what? My mother asked. Spinal surgery. It's urgent. Silence. Then, we'll discuss it at Sunday dinner. I tried logging into the trust portal that night. The bank website loaded fine, but when I entered my information, red letters appeared. Access denied. Contact account administrator. I called the bank the next morning. The representative sounded apologetic but firm. The account is managed by your co-trustees. You'll need their authorization to view statements or make withdrawals. But it's my trust. Technically, yes, but the terms specify dual authorization until you turn 30. I was 27. 3 more years of needing my parents' permission to access my own medical fund. I called my mother. I can't see the account. Oh, that's just a bank error, she said too quickly. We'll handle it. Can you send me the statements? Why would you need those? Because it's my money. Her voice went cold. It's held in trust for your benefit, Talia. That means we determine what benefits you. I took a screenshot of the access denied message. Something my grandmother wrote echoed in my head. I know your parents. Sunday dinner was a performance. My parents lived in a house they couldn't quite afford, in a neighborhood they definitely couldn't afford, maintaining appearances for people who didn't actually like them. My mother set the table with Nana's china, the good stuff she'd inherited and I hadn't. My father carved the roast like he was performing surgery himself. So, he began. This surgery. I need it, I said. Do you? My mother's smile was sharp. You've always been dramatic about pain. Remember when you thought you needed glasses? That was psychosomatic. This is different. I have an MRI, working 2 part-time jobs with no benefits, my father interrupted. No retirement savings. No real career path. And now you want us to hand over a significant amount of money. It's not your money to hand over. The room went silent. My mother set down her fork carefully. Poor life habits lead to poor outcomes, Talia. If you'd made better choices, maybe you wouldn't be in this position. I felt something crack inside. Better choices? Like what? Like getting a real job, my father said. Teaching art isn't a career. It's a hobby. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed during my morning class. Bank alert. I waited until lunch to check. Trust withdrawal. $12,000. Description. Administrative expense. My hands shook holding the phone. I called the bank immediately. What's an administrative expense? It appears to be trustee fees and legal consultation, the representative said. Trustee fees for what? I'm not authorized to provide details. You'll need to contact your trustees. I took a screenshot, fingers trembling, so hard I nearly dropped the phone. $12,000. Gone. For what? I'd never authorized any legal consultation. I'd never even seen a statement. That money was supposed to keep me from becoming paralyzed, and they were billing it for administrative expenses. I called my father. Voicemail. I called my mother. We're managing the trust responsibly, she said. That includes appropriate administrative costs. $12,000. These things are complicated. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She hung up. I saved the recording. Nana's voice whispered in my memory. Don't let them make you small. The confrontation happened in their kitchen, same place where they talked about control when I was 16. I drove over unannounced, bank statements printed from what little I could access, my phone recording in my pocket. You took $12,000, I said, dropping the papers on their granite counter. My mother didn't even look up from her coffee. We're protecting you from yourself. Protecting me? I can't feel my foot. I need surgery. My father leaned against the refrigerator, arms crossed. And you'll get it when we determine the time is right. The neurologist said 3 months maximum. Doctors are alarmists, my mother said. They want to bill insurance. I don't have insurance. That's why I need the trust. You need discipline, my father said. You need to prove you can manage responsibility before we hand over that kind of money. I stared at them, at these people who'd raised me, who'd sung me lullabies once upon a time, who now looked at me like I was an expense they regretted. This is medical care. This is exactly what Nana wanted. Your grandmother was sentimental, my mother said. We're practical. The certified letter arrived on a Thursday. Heavy cream envelope, law firm return address. My hand shook opening it. Petition to modify trust terms and restrict distributions. My parents were taking me to court. Not to help me. To make sure I couldn't help myself. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. They wanted the court to rule that the trust funds could only be distributed in the best interest of the beneficiary as determined by the trustees, which meant they'd have complete control. Forever. I read it twice, sitting on the floor of my apartment, pain shooting down my leg. Then I collapsed. Not from emotion. From actual nerve pain, the kind that makes you see stars and forget how to breathe. My roommate Mateo found me an hour later, still clutching the letter. "Hospital?" he asked. "Lawyer," I whispered. He helped me to his car. We drove to the legal aid clinic on 7th Street. The intern at the desk looked about 19, but her eyes were sharp when she read the petition. "They're breaching their fiduciary duty," she said. Her name was Priya. She became my lifeline. The legal aid office smelled like burnt coffee and photocopier toner. Priya spread my documents across a folding table while I tried not to scream from the pain in my back. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. The trust, the surgery, the locked account, the $12,000 in administrative expenses, Nana's letter, the petition. She took notes in shorthand, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she looked up. "They're not just breaching their duty. They're stealing from you. Can we stop them? We can try. But we'll need evidence. Everything you've got. Bank alerts, recordings, the original will, that letter from your grandmother. I have screenshots and recordings." "Good. We'll need more. Do you have access to any of their files?" I thought about the filing cabinet in their garage, the one my father kept locked but my mother sometimes forgot to secure. "Maybe," I said. "Then we go looking," Priya said. "Tonight, if you can manage it." Hope felt dangerous, but I let myself feel it anyway. I waited until Friday evening when I knew they'd be at their book club. Book club was code for wine and gossip with neighbors they couldn't stand. It usually ran until 10. I had 3 hours. Mateo drove me. "You sure about this?" he asked, parking down the street. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The garage code hadn't changed. Inside smelled like dust and old paint. The filing cabinet sat in the corner, 4 drawers of organized secrets. The top drawer held household bills. The second drawer held tax returns. The third drawer held a folder labeled Trust Management. My heart hammered as I pulled it out. Inside were bank statements going back 3 years. Withdrawals I'd never authorized. Payments to law firms I'd never heard of. And a memo on my father's letterhead. Conversion strategy. Position distributions as loans requiring repayment. Establish pattern of financial irresponsibility. Transfer remaining assets to family LLC. I photographed everything with shaking hands. Flash after flash. Evidence of systematic theft. And then I found it. Nana's original will. The copy they'd never shown me. I was crouched behind winter coats in the garage when headlights swept across the driveway. Too early. They were home too early. I pressed myself against the wall. Camera roll full of evidence. Heart trying to break through my ribs. My mother's voice carried through the door. "Did you lock the garage?" "I thought you did." Keys jangled. The door opened. I held my breath. Phone clutched to my chest. My mother walked past the coats, so close I could smell her perfume. She grabbed something from the workbench and turned to leave, then paused. "Stuart," she called. My father appeared in the doorway. "What?" "We need to bill the next legal consultation to the trust before she requests an accounting." "Already done. $4,500 for the Peterson firm." She laughed. "She has no idea how expensive protecting her is going to be." They left. The door closed. I stayed frozen for 10 minutes before I dared to move. I stumbled to Mateo's car and vomited in their driveway. "Got it?" he asked. "Everything," I whispered. I got everything. 2 weeks later, I was lying on a hospital gurney when Dr. Patel came in with my chart. My surgery had been canceled 3 times due to payment authorization issues. I'd lost feeling in 3 toes now. "I've reviewed your case," she said, "and your financial situation." I waited for the rejection. She sat down on the rolling stool. "We have a charity care program. It's usually reserved for uninsured patients with urgent medical needs and demonstrated financial hardship. I qualify for all of that. You do. I'm placing you on the surgery schedule for next month. No payment required up front. We'll work out a payment plan afterward based on your income. The relief hit me so hard I started crying. Not pretty tears. Ugly, gasping sobs. Dr. Patel handed me tissues. You shouldn't have to fight your parents for medical care, she said quietly. No one should. The surgery date was set for March 15th. 5 weeks away. I could make it 5 more weeks. And maybe, just maybe, I could stop my parents before they stole everything Nana had left me. Humanity existed, even in the chaos. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge who looked tired before we even started. My parents sat at the front table with their lawyer, a smooth-talking man named Vincent Cross, who charged $400 an hour. Priya and I sat at the other table. She wore a suit from Goodwill. I wore the only dress I owned. Judge Morrison reviewed the petition. The trustees are seeking to modify distribution terms based on alleged beneficiary instability. Correct, Your Honor, Cross said. Ms. Rivera has demonstrated poor financial judgment and lacks the maturity to manage significant assets. I'm 27 years old, I said. Priya touched my arm. Quiet. Judge Morrison looked at me over her reading glasses. Ms. Rivera, do you contest the petition? Yes, Your Honor. On what grounds? They're stealing from me. Cross laughed. Actually laughed. Your Honor, this is exactly the kind of emotional instability we're concerned about. Baseless accusations. I have bank statements, I said, showing unauthorized withdrawals. Judge Morrison leaned forward. The trustees are required to provide an accounting. Have they done so? Silence. No, Your Honor, Priya said. They have not. Then I'm ordering a full accounting of all trust activities within 30 days. Court adjourned. First small victory. My father's face turned red. My mother wouldn't look at me. The family group chat exploded that night. My cousin Brian, can't believe you're suing Mom and Dad. My Aunt Sylvia, ungrateful after everything they've done for you. My Uncle Frank, family handles problems privately. I was being painted as the villain in a story they didn't understand. I typed a response 3 times and deleted it. What was the point? Then my phone rang. Aunt Lydia, Nana's younger sister. I heard what's happening, she said. I need you to hear something. She played a voice message. Nana's voice, crackly but clear, recorded 2 weeks before she died. Lydia, if anything happens to me, make sure Talia gets that money. Her father will try to control it. He's always been threatened by creative people. But that money is for her health, her education, her life. Don't let Stuart make her small like he tried to make me small. I sobbed listening to it. Can I use this? I asked. That's why I called, Aunt Lydia said. The next day, I forwarded it to Priya. The accounting arrived via email on a Friday afternoon. 47 pages of transactions. I printed them at the library and spread them across Mateo's kitchen table. Priya came over with highlighters and coffee. We worked until midnight. The pattern was obvious once you looked. Consulting fee, $3,500. Public relations services, $4,200. Financial advisory, $6,800. Trust administration, $2,900. Line after line of expenses that had nothing to do with my health or education. Everything to do with their lifestyle. What's this? Priya pointed to an entry from last year. Reputation management services, $8,500. We Googled the company. They specialized in online reputation cleanup and social media monitoring. My parents had paid a firm to scrub negative mentions of them from the internet using my medical fund. Priya's eyes went wide. This is fraud. Like, actual criminal fraud. Can we prove it? With this. She tapped the pages. Absolutely. This is the kind of accounting that gets trustees removed and surcharged. Surcharged. Forced to repay everything they took, plus damages, plus the other side's legal fees. For the first time in months, I smiled. How soon can we file? My parents' lawyer called with a settlement offer 3 days before my surgery. Your parents want to resolve this amicably, Cross said over speakerphone. Priya had insisted on recording. They're willing to provide a monthly stipend of $500 for your medical expenses, with continued trustee oversight. That's not a settlement, I said. That's an allowance. Additionally, they'll agree to cover your surgical costs if you sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding trust management and family matters. Priya mouthed a no. Can I see the terms? I asked. The email arrived an hour later. 15 pages of legal language, but one clause jumped out. Beneficiary acknowledges that all prior distributions were made in her best interest and agrees that future healthcare decisions will be subject to trustee approval. And in the addendum, one phrase was struck through in red ink. Health first, always. They wanted me to sign away Nana's core principle. Absolutely not, I told Priya. Good, she said. Because I have a better idea. We filed a counter motion that afternoon, not asking for settlement, demanding full restoration of the trust and removal of my parents as trustees. March 15th, surgery day. Mateo drove me to the hospital at 5 a.m. Dr. Patel had scheduled me for the charity surgery, no payment required up front. They wheeled me into pre-op, started the 4, asked the standard questions. Then my phone buzzed. I shouldn't have looked. I did. Facebook post from my mother, public, posted 20 minutes earlier. So proud to support our daughter through her medical journey. Family always comes through when it matters most. Praying for a successful surgery we've worked so hard to make possible. The comments poured in. Friends and relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all praising my parents' generosity and sacrifice. I showed it to the nurse. She squeezed my hand. Focus on healing, she said. The rest can wait. But I couldn't let it wait. During the recovery period, while I was high on painkillers and could barely move, my parents were rewriting history, making themselves the heroes, erasing their theft, weaponizing my trauma for social capital. The fury kept me awake, even when the medication should have knocked me out. When I could finally hold my phone steady, I screenshotted the post and sent it to Priya. Her response was immediate. Perfect. We'll use this too. The audit hearing was scheduled for April 30th, 6 weeks after my surgery. I could walk again, slowly with pain, but I could walk. The court-appointed auditor was a retired accountant named Mr. Walsh who'd seen every financial scheme imaginable. He reviewed the trust accounting with the enthusiasm of someone who loved finding fraud. In the courtroom, he presented his findings with charts and graphs. The trustees have withdrawn $67,000 over 3 years, he said. Of that amount, approximately $8,500 went to a reputation management firm that appears to have been hired to monitor and suppress the beneficiary's social media presence. Judge Morrison's eyebrows shot up. They paid someone to spy on their daughter and to remove posts or comments critical of family dynamics, Mr. Walsh confirmed. Additionally, they paid themselves $24,000 in trustee fees despite the trust document specifying no compensation for family member trustees. My father started to stand. Cross pulled him back down. Your Honor, Cross began. Standard Trust Administration. There's nothing standard about this, Judge Morrison said. I'm ordering the trustees to provide receipts and justification for every expense or face surcharge. My mother finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet. I looked away. The deposition happened in my parents' dining room. The same dining room where they'd told me to make better choices. The same table where they carved roasts and served judgment. Now it was covered with documents and recording equipment. Cross had tried to schedule it at his office, but Priya had insisted on their home. Let's see how comfortable they are in their own space when they have to tell the truth, she'd said. My father wore a suit. My mother wore pearls. They sat across from Priya, and me like this was a business meeting. Priya started with simple questions. Names, dates, basic facts. Then she went deeper. When did you first withdraw funds for administrative expenses? My father checked his notes. Approximately 3 years ago. And what was the expense? Legal consultation regarding trust management. But Ms. Rivera didn't request any legal consultation. We determined it was necessary. Based on what? Silence. My mother jumped in. Based on her unstable employment and poor decision-making. Such as choosing to teach art instead of pursuing a real career. Priya smiled. Let's talk about the reputation management firm. The deposition went on for 4 hours. My father couldn't remember dates. My mother contradicted him 3 times. Cross kept calling breaks. By hour 3, they were visibly panicking. Then Priya pulled out a photograph. Black and white, slightly faded. Nana in her hospice bed, holding my hand, smiling despite everything. "Do you recognize this photo?" she asked my father. "Yes. That's my mother. 2 weeks before she died." "Yes. What do you think she'd say about how you've managed your daughter's trust?" "Objection," Cross said. "Calls for speculation." "I'll rephrase," Priya said. "Did your mother ever express concerns about your relationship with Talia?" My father's jaw tightened. "She thought I was too hard on her." "And did she leave that trust specifically because she worried you wouldn't support Talia's medical needs?" Silence. Long, damning silence. "Yes," my father finally said. My mother looked at him like he'd betrayed her. The deposition ended an hour later. Cross packed his briefcase with shaking hands. As they walked out, I heard him tell my parents, "We need to talk about settlement." But it was too late for that. Vincent Cross withdrew from the case on May 15th. The formal letter cited irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy and fee payment. Translation: my parents couldn't pay him anymore. They'd billed so much to the trust that the court had frozen their access pending the final ruling. The money they'd stolen was now stuck in limbo, and Cross wanted his $40,000 balance. Without their lawyer, my parents tried to represent themselves. It went exactly as well as you'd expect. They filed motions with the wrong headings. They missed deadlines. They showed up to court unprepared and angry. Judge Morrison showed no mercy. On June 1st, she issued her ruling. The trustees have demonstrated a clear breach of fiduciary duty through self-dealing, excessive fees, and failure to prioritize the beneficiary's interests. The court removes Stewart and Maureen Rivera as trustees effective immediately and appoints an independent fiduciary to manage the remaining trust assets. The independent fiduciary was a bank officer named Mr. Kimberly. Professional, neutral, exactly what the trust needed. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, "All legal fees incurred by the trustees in defending this action shall be paid from their personal assets, not from the trust." My mother gasped. My father went pale. The court also orders restitution of all improperly withdrawn funds, totaling $67,000 plus interest. The final blow came quietly. The court's forensic accountant discovered that the legal fees my parents had paid Cross, $83,000 total, had all been drawn from the trust, which meant they'd use my medical fund to fight me in court, and now they had to repay it all. From their own money. The house they couldn't afford went up for sale 3 weeks later. I drove past it once, saw the for sale sign, and kept going. Aunt Lydia called to tell me the family gossip. How my mother cried at the country club about being misunderstood. How my father blamed me for destroying their reputation. How the neighbors whispered. "They did this to themselves," Aunt Lydia said. "Everyone knows it." The trust was restored to $114,000 after restitution and accrued interest. Mr. Kimberly set up a simple distribution system. Medical expenses approved within 48 hours. Educational expenses with documentation. No more permission needed from people who'd proven they cared more about control than my survival. I used the first distribution to pay off Dr. Patel's surgical bill. The second to buy a car that didn't break down every 3 weeks. The third to move into a studio apartment with actual heat. My parents didn't go to jail. They went home to a smaller house, a stack of receipts, and the family whisper that they'd done this to themselves. 1 year later, I walked into my new classroom at Canyon Arts Academy. Full-time position, benefits, retirement plan, the kind of real job my parents had mocked me for not having. The room smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I hung my teaching certificate on the wall next to my graduate degree, finished with money from the trust Nana left me. And next to those, in a simple frame, I hung the letter. "My dearest Talia, I know your parents. I raised your father. He measures love in dollars and respect in compliance. I'm leaving you a trust for one reason. Health first, always." The students would ask about it sometimes. I tell them it was a reminder that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who fight for you, who believe you when you say something hurts. Mateo helped me move. Priya came to my first day and brought flowers. Aunt Lydia called every Sunday. I could walk without pain now, could teach full days without numbness, could sleep without nightmares about being trapped. The inheritance they'd stolen had paid for their downfall. The money they'd used to fight me had proven their guilt. And I'd walked out with my back straight, my dignity intact, and a future they couldn't litigate away. The sun came through the classroom windows, warm on my face. I thought about Nana, about purple caskets and blue ribbons, about fierce love that protects even from the grave. Health first, always, I whispered. And I meant it. My success became the revenge they couldn't steal. My healing became the proof they'd failed. And every day I showed up to teach kids that art matters, that creativity counts, that making beautiful things is a real career. I won again. The best victory wasn't the court ruling or the restored trust. It was this, living well, on my terms, with chosen family who showed up when it mattered. They couldn't take that. No one could. I picked up the first paintbrush of the semester and smiled. The story was mine now, and it had a good ending after all.